Hello and welcome to another episode of First Deal Diaries. I am your host, Danielle Saunders, and today I am joined by Lisa Tope. Lisa has been a chartered physiotherapist since 1992, and today we're going to have a quick chat about what she affectionately calls the flip that flopped. Lisa, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Danielle. It's great to be here.
How are you?
Really well, thank you. Yeah, I'm all good.
Good. Glad to hear it. So yeah, physiotherapist since 1992. What's life looked like for the last 30 years?
Hugely positive and very empowering. I've spent my career working with, majority of the time, either with children or adults with very, very complex needs and disabilities. I spent nearly 15 years working my way up in a very specialist school and college, to the heady heights of being deputy head physiotherapist there, and really teaching along the way people with really, really huge complex disabilities to function to their maximum and their best, which is just one of the most rewarding things you could do.
I was going to say it must be rewarding, but I'd imagine it's very challenging.
Challenging, yes, but I think when you're experienced as a professional and you've got a really good professional team around, obviously there's always going to be challenges, but at the end of the day, you look at what you're doing and achieving with the young people or with the patients, and the difference you're making with them, not to them, with them. That wins hands down every time. That's what brings you into work every morning.
Absolutely. So it's that passion you've had for your career that has led you to look into specialised supported housing, which we will talk about later. But what has been your property experience, over the last, say, 5 years? You mentioned you've been an accidental landlord.
Yeah. Accidental landlord a couple of times. After the first time, I absolutely swore I'd never do it again. I was inexperienced. I had a lot of emotional energy invested in the property. It was a property we chose not to sell. We didn't need to sell. We weren't able to sell it at that point, but we'd invested a lot of time and energy and love into the property. And I think then becoming a landlord for that property was really quite challenging, and I wasn't really prepared. I wasn't prepared for that.
Yeah.
The second time, again, more recently in the last few years, we were in the position that we wanted to move house. It was when the market, of the really current sort of downward turn in the market, really, and we weren't able to sell it. So that time we were in the position that, okay, well, we only have one option. We need to rent it out. But had good letting agents. And that was a much less traumatic process, I think, all the time. Partly, again, because I didn't have that emotional connection with the property.
Okay. So you said in 2023 you had a bit of a turning point. What's happened over the last couple of years?
So I think that was when all sorts of things happened and collided at the same time, in terms of professional life, family life, personal life. And we took the decision that I got myself a different job in a different part of the country that we'd really wanted to move back to in North Kent. I had the job. We couldn't sell the house. We had, my husband then had very, very serious health issues. It then turned out, and the process of being what was very comfortable in our lives, non-challenging, standard 9 to 5 work, looking after our son, who was then 16, 17. We then really, in the last 2 years, and the property journey is part of that, it's like we it's like we pulled the sticking plaster off of the comfortableness of life and really challenged ourselves with the different life journey that we've taken over the past couple of years. And part of that was me basically looking at my pension, having worked for the NHS and various other options, looking at actually my pension statements, having been pretty financially naive along my way, and thinking, is that it? Surely you don't expect me to live on that. And actually that was the reality. And that for me was the real kick to actually start my own journey of self-education. Initially forgetting the property, actually just becoming more financially aware and more financially astute. And then the property and what to then do about that followed on from that.
Okay, so you read Property Magic, you did the PIN Mastermind program with Simon Zucci. Was the deal that we're going to talk about, was that before you had that education, or was it at the very start of that education?
It was literally the very, very start. And, I'm very, very pleased that going through that deal, I had the support of that network around me. Absolutely, because it certainly gave me the strength and the resilience to continue through challenging times. Potentially other people would look back and say I was quite naive, but like I started off life as a physiotherapist.
Yeah, you took a risk. You thought you'd give it a go. So let's talk about that deal a bit more now. So what was it? Where was it? How much did it cost you?
So it was, we were then living in an area of North Kent called Faversham, very, very lovely market town. And it was actually for the area quite a unique property. It was a 2-bedroom end of terrace. The unique thing about it for the region is that the bathroom was upstairs. Many of the 2 up, 2 downs in the town, actually the bathrooms were downstairs. And I just hate the idea that in the night one needs to get up to go downstairs if one needs to use the bathroom.
Yeah.
So that was one of the reasons why I liked the property. It was actually a motivated seller. It was a gentleman that had lived there 30 odd years. His parents lived in a supported living complex in the town. A property had come up in that block, and he wanted to be in there to support his, quite elderly parents. So that was how I got into the deal. It needed a refurbishment. It hadn't really had much love for, certainly, let's be blunt and say 20 of the 30 years that he'd owned it. It had issues with damp. Yeah.
Okay, so you stacked the deal, the numbers look good. You thought this is going to be a great opportunity for me to get stuck into some property deals and start pushing the needle forward. So things didn't start to go as planned quite soon after, is that right?
I think what it was, yes, there was very much a combination of factors that, I did all the right things, absolutely. I lined up various builders' quotes. I went with the building team that weren't the most expensive, weren't the cheapest. We had what should have been a really good window through what would have essentially been the summer holidays, expecting a quick completion because the guy was motivated. Obviously, the conveyance process would always take time, but it was a tender deal, so it was quicker to get into. And what happened, it turned out that a property he was buying, the vendor of that was very, very slow and very, very sticky. And that meant our whole conveyance process then ground to a halt. So rather than my builders having the opportunity to be in and out through the summer holidays when they had a gap in their gap in their schedule, we didn't actually start until just after the summer holidays, by which time they had another job already in the diary. So that certainly was the beginning of the start of the unraveling of what should have been a very smooth, quick, and relatively easy process.
So what happened next? How did the project continue to spiral?
So we had the damp issues were greater than we thought the minute we'd spec'd for the damp being up to, it was an end of terrace apartment, end of terrace house. So 3 external walls. We'd expected the damp to go up to sort of, we'd expected it to go up to sort of 1.2 meters, and the quote was to rectify the damp up to that level. As it turned out, we had to strip up all the way back to ceiling level on the ground floor. That then uncovered the fact that the above window lintels for the front and back windows were basically crumbled. So we had more structural issues there. One of my biggest learnings from the project was knowing that there was an unsupported chimney stack in the kitchen. I knew that had come out of survey. I didn't go back and renegotiate on that, which again is one of the things that I very much learned along the way. And throughout all this process of the builders not being fully on site all the time because they were committed elsewhere, it then turned out that actually the building partnership that I'd employed had actually stopped speaking more or less to each other. And through the process of my deal, their sort of partnership essentially dissolved. And I didn't know until a fair few weeks or month or so into that process. So I was talking to one of them and they were blaming the other, and I was talking to the other and they were blaming the other. And actually it was one of the guys that was working for one of them in the middle that sort of said, yeah, things aren't great here. Don't know if you know that, but this is part of the problem. So it was kind of a classic cacophony of unfortunate circumstances that can always be foreseen.
So timescales were running away. I mean, this must have had a massive impact on your finances as well, the budget.
Yeah.
So you were under pressure from all angles. Did you sort of get halfway through and think, oh my God, what am I doing? This isn't for me, or did you think, actually, I can sort this out, everything will be fine? You know, what was going through your head during this process?
I think I was just stoically marching forward.
Okay.
I just needed to keep going. One of the things about Mastermind, or for anyone that's done any of the masterminding, the PIN Mastermind is each month when you're in the workshop, you stand up at the microphone and have a chance to reflect about the last month and talk about deals and seek help. And there was I would stand up at the mic each month. Yeah, well, this is what's happened this month. And just that sort of, there was only one way out. The only way out was forwards. I just needed to see it through. I knew at the end of the day it would be a beautiful home for somebody. I was looking at various different options along the way, thinking that because of what was happening in the local market and another property down the road that was for sale, it became really clear that actually I wouldn't be able to sell this property. So by then I was already talking to the council. I was looking and thinking, this is going to need to be rented out. I'm going to need to hold it.
Oh my gosh.
And that's where it was, and that's where we ended up. Actually, with a lovely house that I'm really proud of, learned a huge amount, and the circumstances weren't right for selling it. But in the intervening time, if anybody thinks about the property market, what was, last year, basically, the rental market went up and the sale market went down.
Yeah.
As of course it generally does, fortunately, in property. So I had my second exit wasn't an exit. My second exit was to hold. And because the rental prices were going up, it meant that it was actually feasible to hold it. which is where I've ended up.
Okay. And you're just coming to the conclusion of that refinance. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, literally. The refinance, the remortgage, the everything has literally just collided together this month, so that the tenant's money coming in with through a fully managed, very good letting agency in the area, will cover that, the remortgage, all the fees, and I will have a smidgen of cash flow at the end of it. So it's been a very long, getting on for, well, let's say 15 months. But yes, pleased that it's there and it's doing actually what property is there to do.
Absolutely.
Appreciating them.
So I think it's really brave of you to be so open and honest about your experiences. We don't often hear about the struggles that people have in property. So I really appreciate you talking about this. And actually, you do emphasize in some of the notes I've got here when we've talked previously about what you call self-analysis and honesty. Tell me, what does that mean for you? What does the whole mindset and this self-analysis mean to you?
I think it's very much reflecting on the lessons learned, actually looking back and thinking, okay, I really misjudged, or I could have made that decision better with the benefit of hindsight. For example, the unsupported chimney stack. I knew at survey that we had a potential issue in the kitchen. I didn't go back and renegotiate. And to me, that was because I didn't want to appear. I thought by renegotiating, it would show that I was naive and less confident. Actually, what I absolutely know from that whole process and on the process is actually the complete professional thing to do should have been to go back and renegotiate. But that time, that to me would have felt like a weakness, a lack of confidence.
And
And
actually, on the
it's
flip
that,
side, somebody said to me about this sort of thing when you renegotiate. Someone said to me they were worried that they would come across as being ruthless, which is almost the opposite of what you're talking about, which just goes to prove that the mindset, the narrative we tell ourselves can be so different from one person to the next, but still have the same effect on how we do deals.
yeah,
So
no,
it's
totally.
massive, isn't it? And
Mm.
you've been part of Mastermind. You won Spokesperson of the Year at SIL when was that?
This March,
March this
yeah,
year. Wow. Okay. So that must have given you a massive boost in confidence.
yeah. I entered the competition bluntly because I didn't want my mastermind journey to end. I got so much from that year, and the only way open to me to actually get onto the next level was to enter and ultimately win the competition. So, and it was an incredible experience, sharing with the audience that my journey and where that journey has led me to basically ultimately web my two lives back together. My life of being a healthcare professional and a competent and educated property investor.
Absolutely. So that was quite a challenging first deal you had. What's one thing that you do differently now when you're looking at opportunities?
I surround myself with many more professionals from day one. So in various opportunities that I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute, I've literally been viewing those with quantity surveyors.
Okay.
So that because we're looking at some potentially big projects, big refurbs, big money, and actually a back of an envelope tot up doesn't cut it. So it's actually used experts of experts for a reason. And it's to use experts absolutely more from the outset, because also that's a really good way of developing relationships and also widening your own network. So I think that, and the, continuing with the self-analysis and reflection.
So if somebody was looking at doing a deal and then perhaps they hear your story or somebody else's and they think, oh, that would be me. It would be me who would, have a disaster first deal. What advice would you give them?
Seek counsel from those that have done it. There's a lot of people doing a lot of talking out there, but you need to surround yourself by the people that are talking and doing, or even not necessarily talking, just the doers. Actually seek advice along the way from, those people that, that have been through those sorts of, potential issues, to make sure they're not issues.
Absolutely. And I find in property community, from whatever networking event you go to, there's no competition and rivalry. It's very supportive. Whereas I think a lot of business networking events can be, especially if there's a similar groups of businesses in the room, you get a bit more rivalry and a bit more secrecy. But it's not like that in property. Have you found that?
Totally. Yeah. And that's one of the things I love about the property community. And one reason why I speak openly about this project, in various forums, because, and that there is no rivalry. There is only ever support out there. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really important that people, somebody once said to me, you haven't done property till you've lost money. And which, not wanting to put too many people off listening, actually, at some point, everybody will have a deal that just doesn't work as well as they hoped it would.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it's not successful, because there's either winning or learning.
Absolutely. So I want to talk to you a bit more about the specialised supported housing in a moment. But first of all, let's go into my quick fire round. Are you ready?
I am.
Okay. Are you an early bird or night owl?
I've reverted to a night owl, regrettably.
Oh, okay. One word to describe that first deal.
Challenging.
Best book you've read on mindset?
Eat That Frog.
Oh, good one. A habit that keeps you grounded.
Running.
Nice. Flexibility or planning, which wins?
I can't answer this one. Flexibly planning.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, that, isn't it? If you had 200k land in your account, what would you do?
I would continue to do what I'm doing at the moment, actually, which is invest in supported living and specialised supported housing project.
The biggest myth about supported living?
It's easy.
What's one thing you'll never compromise on?
Honesty and integrity.
Great. Biggest time waster?
Probably multitasking.
Okay, yeah, I understand
because
that.
actually you don't ever save time multitasking.
No. And I love this one. Finish the sentence. Growth starts when
you're open to it.
Ooh, nice. All right. So, specialised supported housing. Like, I'm going to have people listening to this podcast who would never have heard about it before. So tell us, what's it about?
So the way I describe it is, you need to go back to whatever social housing is. Social housing is an umbrella term for where somebody needs support somewhere for a home. There is one end of that, which is regrettably where perhaps families or somebody need emergency accommodation because they've been unable to afford their rent, say, or they've lost their home because they've defaulted on their mortgage. So that is one end of social housing. So those people don't need the support in the house. They just need the house. Through the continuum then, you've then got people that need some sort of support to be able to live in one way or another. That could be ex-offenders needing support with turning their lives around, writing CVs, doing jobs. So they have then some sort of light touch support going into the house, the home, where they have the support to do that and a house alongside it. And then along the continuum, further and further to the more complex, you've then got perhaps people with adults with learning disabilities or children leaving care that need more support into the home. And then right at the really, 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 really complicated end is specialised supported housing, which is where you have properties that are essentially created bespoke to suit the complex needs of the residents that live in them. And they will all have 24-hour care in the home. And they will all generally have, they will all have at least one person looking after them at any one time. Some may require more than one person at any one time to keep them safe. So that is the super niche end where specialised supported housing lives.
So it's quite the buzzword at the moment. I'm hearing a lot of people talk about it. Is everybody doing it? You know, what is the alternative for these young adults coming out of the care system with severe autism or physical disabilities? What's the alternative for them if they don't have one of these amazing houses available?
Regrettably, this is the alternative that many are having to live through. They are either still within family homes where the support to keep them safe is literally going into the family home, and they are having to exist as part of a family home with a care package going in to support that person. They may well be in some sort of hospital care. Regrettably, people with complex needs and disabilities, when they potentially become unwell, they obviously, like everybody, need to go to hospital. If the property where they were living previously actually is no longer suitable, then there is regrettably often no alternative to them staying in that hospital until a suitable property is found. And
Wow.
there are thousands of people in our hospitals or our step-down facilities, thousands that have been in these facilities for years because there is no suitable homes for them.
So like I said, it is quite the buzzword. Is enough being done? And if not, why not?
What makes it challenging, and it has been a very challenging year, and I think anybody within the specialised supported housing sector will agree, is that the complexities of the reality of local councils having minimal squashed budgets, integrated healthcare boards going through a restructure, the whole team, that the complex web that is needed to create these properties and pull them together. It's like the scaffolding, the sand underneath the structure that these properties are created under. That's changed. It's not there in the same way anymore, especially for the most complex, regrettably, because the most complex generally need a property by themselves. Then you don't have the economies of scale for the purchase of, generally, we're looking for 2 or 3 bed bungalows. They always have to be detached because we're talking people with potentially loud, challenging behaviour. They may not sleep. They may have different behaviour patterns. We can't put somebody with those degrees of challenges in a house that's semi-detached. They may have mobility needs. If they don't have mobility needs now, there is huge evidence to say that somebody with learning disability, their mobility will decline much quicker than the general population. So we always try and future-proof by doing bungalows. So the capital cost of actually the whole general conveyance purchase property and the bespoke refurb that may be required to keep it safe for them is massive. And if you've only got one person in that property, the rents are huge. And there isn't the flexibility within the system through the councils, through housing benefit, through the government to actually be able to honour those massive rents.
I see.
The flip and positive side is where you've actually got those that need slightly less support, that can actually live within a small apartment, a 1-bedroom apartment as part of a block, again, bespoke made, bespoke created. Then you can have potentially 6, 8, 10 rents within that block that actually then makes the finances easier. And that is where SSH is winning at the moment. But it's not enough.
Okay. So this is where your passion really lies. This is where your future lies. You are doing a couple of you're doing 2 HMOs at the moment to just provide you with a stable grounding, some positive cash flow each month in order that you can pursue specialised supported housing even more.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That's right. And so we've bought this, or in the process of purchasing 2 HMOs. And it may well be that, so there is a very strong rental demand in that region at the moment. That's one of the reasons why we bought them. But also looking at, again, big learning points always have different options, different exits or hold options. We will very seriously start looking at actually, can we lease probably one of those properties onto a supported living provider. So not the SSH end, but actually the generic supported living. Everyone's got their own front door, albeit in an HMO. There'll be floating support through the house, so care throughout the house, but for 5 residents, not the 1-to-1 SSH model. And there are definitely, for investors, there's definitely the benefit of that as a potential model going forwards. And that's also something that I'm looking at supporting investors to do. I've made huge numbers of contacts, huge numbers of learning over the last year or so. And at the end of the day, I just want people that deserve a home to have the chance of having a home.
Absolutely. I think it's an incredibly worthwhile cause, and it's something we could probably deep dive into for a lot longer, Lisa. How can people get in touch with you to help you in your journey, to find out more? As you said, connections are so valuable. So are you on social media, or what's your email address?
I am on both LinkedIn and Facebook. Lisa Tope will find me. My main contact business is called looklineproperty.co.uk. So the website is www.looklineproperty.co.uk. I'm sure I can either give you my contact details so that they can go in the show notes. I'm very happy to talk to anybody about SSH or supported living, because yes, I just feel very strongly that there is a whole group of society that need their needs met that aren't being met. And as the property community and as investors, we are very, very strongly placed to create massive change for that group of people.
I think that's absolutely wonderful, and I feel very inspired again. So thank you so much, Lisa, for coming on the podcast. It's been fascinating, and your bravery to tell your story on the flip that flopped is really great. So I appreciate your honesty. Lisa, thank you for coming on. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been really lovely. Thank you, Danielle, for inviting me.
I hope you've enjoyed this very insightful episode of the First Deal Diaries. Do give us a like, a comment, and get in touch with Lisa if you would like to know more about specialised supported housing. See you again on First Deal Diaries. Thank you for listening to First Deal Diaries. This episode is brought to you by Salty Air Design, where story meets design and brands breathe deep. See you next time for another First Deal story.